Picture this. You're a Briton in the 2nd century, minding your own business, tending to your sheep, maybe enjoying a pint of whatever passed for beer back then. Life's not exactly luxurious, but hey, at least you've got your land, your people, and a good old-fashioned hatred for the Romans. Then one day, you hear a rumor, something about a wall, a big one, and before you can even ask why anyone would build such a thing, when there are perfectly good forests around, a bunch of Roman soldiers show up and say, "Pack your things, you don't live here anymore." Wait, what? Welcome to one of the greatest forced migrations in ancient Britain, a story of confusion, resistance, and the absolute audacity of the Roman Empire. Let's unravel the tale of what happened when Emperor Hadrian decided to play real-life SimCity with people's home, and why some Britons found themselves on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of the wall. The year was 122 CE. The Romans had been in Britain for a while now, ever since Claudius thought it would be fun to add some damp, foggy islands to the empire's portfolio. But Britain was a headache. Unlike other conquered lands where the locals mostly grumbled but complied, the tribes up north, especially those beyond the Tyne, were a whole different breed. These were the Caledonians and other wild, unruly Britons who had a habit of painting themselves blue, screaming into battle and refusing to pay taxes. And nothing annoyed Rome more than unpaid taxes. Hadrian, Rome's emperor at the time, had a brilliant idea. If we can't conquer them, well, contain them. So instead of spending more money and soldiers trying to bring the northern Britons to heel, he decided to build a giant wall across the width of the island, from the River Tyne to the Solway Firth, and thus, Hadrian's Wall was born a 73-mile-long, 15-foot high, 10-foot thick, do not disturb sign for Rome's troublesome northern neighbors. Now here's where things get really inconvenient for the Britons already living in the area. See, you can't just build a massive stone wall without making some room. And when the Romans said room, what they actually meant was clearing out entire villages, farmland, and settlements. Hundreds, possibly thousands, of Britons suddenly found themselves relocated because they had the misfortune of living right where Rome wanted to put its new fence. Imagine the scene: you're a Briton farmer, and one day a Roman centurion shows up at your doorstep with a scroll and a bad attitude. "Greetings, barbarian. Good news. The mighty Emperor Hadrian has chosen your land for a glorious Roman project." Oh, does that mean new roads? More trade? No, it means get out. The Britons who lived within the planned military zone were forced to live. No compensation, no explanation, just the sharp end of a Roman spear, encouraging them to find a new home elsewhere. This was especially frustrating for those who had already been dealing with years of Roman rule. The empire had conquered southern Britain, built towns, and imposed its way of life. And now, even the scraps they had left were being taken away. Some Britons tried to resist. Small-scale skirmishes broke out, mostly guerrilla-style ambushes on Roman builders, but let's be honest, resisting Rome was like throwing pebbles at a war elephant. The Romans were efficient. They burned down villages in the way, forced people out, and stationed thousands of soldiers along the wall, making sure the locals didn't try anything funny. And where did these displaced Britons go? Well, some moved south, blending into other tribal lands, becoming farmers, traders, or just very angry people with nowhere to go. Others might have attempted to integrate with the Romans, living in the settlements that popped up near forts along the wall. But many, they simply vanished from history, their stories swallowed by time. But let's not forget the real reason for this wall. Despite what Roman propaganda claimed, this wasn't just about security. This was also about control. Hadrian's wall wasn't just keeping the northern Britons out, it was also keeping the southern Britons in. If you were a Romanized Briton, you weren't exactly free to wander up north anymore. The wall acted as a giant checkpoint, a way to regulate trade, collect tolls, and remind everyone who was really in charge. And of course, Rome loved a good flex. Hadrian's wall was a statement, a way of saying, look at what we built, look at how powerful we are, look at how we can displace entire communities and still call it progress. For the Britons forced to move, however, this wasn't some great engineering marvel. This was eviction, plain and simple. A way of erasing their presence from their own lands, a reminder that, to Rome, they were just another obstacle to be dealt with. And yet, history loves to focus on the Romans show clever they were, how disciplined, how sophisticated. But what about the people they pushed aside? What happened to those Britons who lost their homes? What was their side of the story? If you're as fascinated by history's forgotten people as I am, let's keep digging. Who else got the short end of the empire's stick? What other stories are hiding behind these grand monuments? Let's uncover them together. But first, let's talk about the real question here. Was Hadrian's wall worth it? Here's the kicker. Despite all that effort, despite all the manpower, the forced relocations, the money and the grand vision, the wall didn't even work. No, seriously. The northern Britons, later known as the Picts, just climbed over it, walked around it, or on particularly energetic days mashed right through it. The wall was more of an inconvenience than a real barrier. Rome eventually abandoned Britain in the 5th century, and Hadrian's wall, it fell into disrepair. Stones were taken for other buildings, forts were left to crumble, and the once mighty symbol of Roman power became just another ruin in the English countryside. And those Britons who had been displaced, they might not have won the war, but in the long run, they outlived Rome. So if there's a lesson here, it's this. Empires rise and fall, but the people, they endure, even when they're kicked off their own land.